Good morning. Chapter 3 of Gregor the Overlander. Hands down, she was the strangest looking person Gregor had ever seen. Her skin was so pale he could see every vein in her body. He thought of the section in the human anatomy on the human anatomy in the science book. Flip one page, see the bones. Next, the digestive system. This girl was a walking circulatory system. At first he thought her hair was gray like his grandma's, but that wasn't right. It was really more of a silver color, like blonde hair with a metallic tint. The hair was woven in an intricate braid down her back and was tucked into a belt at her waist. A thin band of gold encircled the girl's head. It could have been some kind of hair band, but Gregor had a bad feeling it was a crown. He didn't want this girl to be in charge. He could tell by the upright way she held herself, by the slight smile at the corner of her mouth, by the way she managed to be looking down at him, even though he was a good 6 inches taller than she was, that she had a real attitude. That's what his mom would say about certain girls he knew. She's got real attitude. She would shake her head, but Gregor could tell she approved of these girls. Well, there was having attitude, and then there was just being a show-off. Gregor felt sure she'd done this fancy trick off the bat completely for his benefit. One flip would have been plenty. It was her way to intimidate him. But he wouldn't be intimidated. Gregor looked straight into the girl's eyes and saw that her irises were a dazzling shade of purple. He held his ground. Gregor didn't know how long they might have stood there sizing each other up if Boots hadn't intervened. She plowed into the girl, knocked her off balance. The girl staggered back a step and looked at Boots in disbelief. Boots grinned winningly and held up a pudgy hand. "Ball?" she said hopefully. The girl knelt on one knee and held out the ball to Boots, but she kept her fingers wrapped tightly around it. "It's yours if you can take it," she said in a voice like her eyes, cold and clear and foreign. Boots tried to take the ball, but the girl didn't release it. Confused, she pulled on the girl's fingers. "Ball?" The girl shook her head. "You have to be stronger or smarter than I am." Boots looked up at the girl, registering something, and poked her right in the eye. "Pupil," she said. The girl jerked back, dropping the ball. Boots scrambled after it and scooped it up. The girl narrowed her eyes. "But not you, or you would not say such things to a queen." Oh, sorry. Gregor couldn't resist. "I guess she's smarter," he said. It was a little mean, but he didn't like her messing with Boots that way. The girl narrowed his eyes. "But not you, or you would not say such things to a queen." So he had been right. She was royalty. Now she'd probably chop off his head or something. Still, he felt it would be bad if he acted scared. Gregor shrugged. "No, if I'd known you were a queen, I'd probably have said something a lot cooler." "Cooler?" she said, raising her eyebrows. "Better," said Gregor, for lack of a cooler word. The girl decided to take it as an apology. "I will forgive you, as you are not knowing. What are you called, Overlander?" "My name's Gregor, and that's Boots," he said, pointing to his sister. "Well, her name's not really Boots. It's Margaret. But we call her Boots because in the winter she steals everyone's boots and runs around in them, and because of this musician my dad likes." That sounded confusing even to Gregor. "What's your name?" "I'm Queen Luxa," said the girl. "Luxa," said Gregor, trying to get the odd inflection right. "What means this, what the baby says, pupil?" she asked. "Purple. It's her favorite color. And your eyes, she's never seen purple eyes before," explained Gregor. Boots heard the word and came over, holding up her palms, which were still dyed purple from the marker. "Pupil." "I have never seen brown before, not on a human," said Luxa, staring into Boots's eyes. "Or this." She caught Boots's wrist and ran her fingers over the silky brown skin. "It must need much light." Boots giggled. Every inch of her was ticklish. Luxa purposely ran her fingers up under Boots' chin, making her laugh. For a second, Luxa lost her attitude, and Gregor thought she might not be so bad. Then she straightened up and resumed her haughty manner. So, Gregor the Overlander, you and the baby must bathe. Gregor knew he was sweating from running through the tunnels, but that was pretty rude. Maybe we should just go. Go? Go where? Said Luxa in surprise. Home, he said. Smelling like you do? You will be thrice dead before you reach the waterway, even if you knew the path to take. She could see he didn't understand. You smell of the overland. That is not safe for you here, or for us. Oh, said Gregor, feeling a little foolish. I guess we should rinse off before we go home then. It's not so simple, but I will let Vicus explain, said Luxa. You have had rare luck today being found so quickly. How do you know we were found quickly? Asked Gregor. Our lookout notes noted you shortly after you landed. As you were the crawler's find, we let them present you, she said. I see, said Gregor. Where had the lookouts been? Concealed in the gloom of the tunnels, hidden somewhere in the mist he'd fallen through. Until the stadium, he hadn't seen anyone but the roaches. These were headed here in any case, she said, gesturing to the roaches. See, they carry torches. They would not bother if they were not visiting us. Why's that? Said Gregor. Crawlers do not need light, but they show themselves to us to let us know they come peacefully. Did you not wonder at how easily you arrived here? She asked. Without waiting for an answer, she turned to the group of cockroaches, who had been standing patiently off to the side. Crawlers, what take you for the overlanders? The head roach scurried forward. Give you 5 baskets, give you, he hissed. We will give you 3 grain baskets, said Luxa. Rats give many fish, said the roach, cleaning its antennas casually. Take them to the rats, then. It will give you no time. Gregor didn't exactly know what they were talking about, but he had the uneasy sense that he was for sale. The insect considered Luxa's last offer. Give you 4 baskets, give you, it said. We will give 4 baskets and 1 for thanks, said a voice behind Gregor. He turned and saw a pale, bearded man approaching them on foot. His close-cropped hair really was silver, not just the silvery blonde. Luxa glared at the old man, but didn't contradict him. The cockroach painstakingly added up 4 and 1 on his legs. Give you 5 baskets, give you? It asked as if the whole idea was a new one. We will give 5 baskets, said Luxa less than graciously, giving the roach a terse bow. It bowed back and scampered off with the other bugs out of the stadium. And if it's up to Vicus, soon we will have no baskets to give, the girl said pointedly to the bearded man who had turned his focus to Gregor and Boots. 1 more basket will be a small price to pay if he is expected, he answered. His violet eyes stared intently at Gregor. Tell me, Overlander, are you from, he searched for the words, New York City? Chapter 4. It was as if someone had splashed water in Gregor's face and brought reality rushing back. Ever since he'd fallen through the hole in the wall, things had been happening so fast it was all he could do to keep up with them. Now, in his momentary calm, the words New York City came as a shock. Yes, he was a kid who lived in New York City and had to do the laundry and get back upstairs with his little sister before his mother. His mother! I have to go home now, Gregor blurted out. His mom worked as a receptionist at the dentist office. She usually got off right at 5 and was home by 5:30. She'd be worried sick if she came home and found that he and Boots had disappeared, especially after what had happened to his dad. We tried to figure out how much time had passed since he was in the laundry room. We probably fell for, let's say, 5 minutes, and then we must have run for about 20 with the cockroaches, and we'd been here about 10, he thought, 35 minutes. Okay, so the clothes should be about dry, he said aloud. If we get back up there in the next 20 minutes or so, it'll be okay. No one would think to look for them before that, and he could just take the laundry up and fold it in the apartment. Really, I need to go back right now. he said to Vicus. The old man was still examining him closely. It is simple to fall down, but the going up requires much giving, much tightening. What do you mean? Said Gregor, his throat going closed. It means you cannot go home, said Luxa flatly. You must stay in the Underland. No, thank you, said Gregor. I mean, you're all great, but I've got stuff to do upstairs. He said, thanks again. Nice meeting you. Come on, Boots. Gregor scooped up his sister and headed for the arched opening the roaches had left by. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Luxa raise her hand. For a moment, he thought she was saying goodbye. But that couldn't be right. If it's not a wave, then it's a signal, he muttered to Boots, and then he bolted for the doorway. He might have made it if he hadn't been hauling Boots, but he couldn't really run with her in his arms. 10 yards from the exit, the first bat swept in front of him, knocking him flat on his back on the ground. His body cushioned Boots's fall, and she immediately sat up on his stomach to enjoy the show. Every bat in the arena had dived for them. They flew in a tight circle around Gregor and Boots, locking them in a prison of wings and fur. Everyone had a rider as pale and silver-haired as Luxa. Despite the close proximity and the speed of the bats, none of the people had any trouble staying mounted. In fact, only a few bothered to hold on at all. One cocky-looking guy on a glossy black bat actually lay in a reclining position, propping up his head with one hand. The riders couldn't take their eyes off the captives. As they flashed by, Gregor could see their expressions ranged from amusement to outright hostility. Boots bounced on his stomach and clapped her tiny hands. Bats, 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 bats. Well, at least one of us is enjoying this, thought Gregor. Boots loved bats. At the zoo, she'd stand in front of the large plate glass window of the bat habitat forever if you let her. In the small, dark display, hundreds of bats managed to flit around continuously without knocking one into one another. They could do that because of something called echolocation. The bats would emit a sound that would echo off something solid, and they'd be able to tell where it was located. Gregor had read the card on echolocation about 1 billion times, waiting for Boots to get tired of the bats. He felt like something of an expert on the subject. Bats, 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 chanted Boots, using his stomach for a trampoline. Feeling queasy, Gregor pushed himself up on his elbows and scooted her into the ground. The last thing he needed was to throw up in front of these people. He got to his feet. Boots tucked her arm around his knee and leaned against him. The circle of bats shrunk in even closer. What, like I'm going somewhere? Said Gregor with aggravation. He heard a couple of the riders laugh. Luxa must have given another signal because the bats peeled off one at a time and began wheeling around the arena in complicated patterns. Gregor saw that neither she nor Vicus had bothered to move from where he had left them. He looked at the doorway, and he knew it was pointless. Still, these people were a little too smug for their own good. Gregor sprinted 3 steps for the exit before he whipped around and headed back to Luxa, catching his sister's hand on the way. Taken by surprise, the bats broke out of formation and zoomed down, only to find themselves with no one to capture. They pulled up in an awkward clump, and while they didn't actually collide, Gregor felt grateful to see several riders struggling to stay on their bats. The crowd, which had been amazingly quiet since their appearance, broke out in appreciative laughter. Gregor felt a little more confident. At least he wasn't the only one who looked like an idiot. Fake them out, he said to Boots. Luxa's gaze was icy, but Gregor saw Vicus trying to suppress a smile as he walked up. So you said something about a bath, he said to Luxa. You will follow to the palace now, said Luxa crossly. She flicked her hand and her golden bat swept down behind her. Just as it was about to crash into her, Luxa leapt in the air. She lifted her legs straight out to the sides and touched her toes in a move Gregor thought he'd maybe seen cheerleaders do. The bat ducked under her, and she landed on its back easily. It arched up, missing Gregor by inches. Then it righted itself in the air and sped out of the stadium. "You're wasting your time with that stuff," called Gregor, although Luxa was out of earshot. He felt angry with himself because, in fact, he had to admit this girl had some moves. Vicus had heard him, though. His smile broadened. Gregor scowled at the old man. "What? Will you follow to the palace, Overlander?" asked Vicus politely. "As what, your prisoner?" said Gregor bluntly. "As our guest, I hope," replied Vicus, "although Queen Luxa had no doubt ordered the dungeon readied for you." His violet eyes literally twinkled, and Gregor found himself liking the man in spite of himself. Maybe it was because he was pretty sure Vicus liked him. He resisted the temptation to smile. "Lead the way," said Gregor indifferently. Vicus nodded and waved him toward the far side of the arena. Gregor followed a few steps behind him, towing boots. The stands were beginning to empty. High in the air, the people filed out through exits between their bleachers. Several bats still wove around the stadium doing aerodynamic maneuvers. Whatever game had been in progress had ended when Gregor arrived. The remaining bats and riders were hanging around to keep an eye on him. As they neared the main entrance to the stadium, Vicus dropped back and fell in step with Gregor. "You must feel as if you are trapped in a dream, Overlander." "I was thinking nightmare," said Gregor evenly. Vicus chuckled. "Our bats and crawlers, no, what is it you call them? Cockroaches." "Cockroaches," said Gregor. "Ah, yes, cockroaches," agreed Vicus. "In the Overland, they are but handfuls, while here they grow largely." "How do you know that? Have you been to the Overland?" said Gregor. If Vicus could get there, then so could he and Boots. "Oh, no, such visits are rare as trees. It is the Overlanders who come at times to us. I have met 6 or 7, one called Fred Clark, another called Mickey, and most recently a woman known as Coco." "What are you called, Overlander?" asked Vicus. "Gregor." "Are they still here? Are the other Overlanders still here?" asked Gregor, brightening at the thought. "Sadly, no. This is not a gentle place for Overlanders," said Vicus, his face darkening. Gregor stopped, pulling Boots up short. "You mean you killed them?" Now he'd insulted the guy. We humans killed the Overlanders? I know of your world, of the evils that transpire there, but we do not kill for sport," said Vicus severely. "Today we have taken you among us. Had we denied you, count on it, you would not be breathing now." "I didn't mean you. I don't know how it works here," stammered Gregor, although he should have guessed that it wasn't very diplomatic to suggest Vicus was a murderer. "So the roaches would have killed us?" "The crawlers kill you?" said Vicus. "No, it would give them no time." There was that expression again. What did it mean to give the roaches time? "But no one else even knows you're here," said Gregor. "No one else even knows we're here," said Gregor. Vicus looked at him gravely. Concern had replaced his anger. "Believe me, boy, by this time every creature in the Underland knows you are here." Gregor resisted an impulse to look over his shoulder. "And that's not a good thing, is it?" Vicus shook his head. "No, that's not in any manner a good thing." The old man turned to the exit of the stadium. Half a dozen pale, violet-eyed guards flanked 2 gigantic stone doors. It took their combined efforts to push the doors open a few feet to allow Vicus to pass. Gregor led Boots through the doors, and they closed immediately behind him. He followed Vicus down a tunnel lined with stone torches to a small ark filled with something dark and fluttery. Gregor thought it might be more bats, but on closer inspection, He saw that it was a cloud of tiny black moths. Was this what he had passed through when he stumbled into the stadium? Vicus gently slid his hand into the insects. These moths are a warning system peculiar to the underland, I believe. The moment their pattern of flight is disrupted by an intruder, every bat in the area discerns it. I feel it's so perfect in its simplicity, he said, and then he vanished into the moths. Behind the curtain of wings, Gregor could hear his voice beckoning. Gregor the Overlander, welcome to the city of Regalia. Gregor glanced down at Boots, who had a puzzled look on her face. Go home, Gregor? She asked. He picked her up and gave her what he hoped was a reassuring hug. Not now, baby. We have to do some things first. Then we'll go home. Gregor took a deep breath and stepped into the moths.